Back to the channel, everyone. My name is McCloud. I am a Georgia-based makeup artist, and today's bridal client is Miss Sonya. Her wedding was last weekend, and so she wanted a full glam look, glitz and glitter, to look like a straight-up princess. So first, we're going to cleanse the skin with some micellar water, and we're exfoliating using the Medicube Zero Pore Pads just to make sure that we are sloughing off all of that dead skin that may have conjured up on her skin. And then we're going to go in and tone that skin using the Rose Toner. I got this toner from Amazon, and I can link that down where it came from. And moisturizer, I'm using an Embryolisse Creme. This is a stable, key, and essential thing in my kit. It's very moisturizing. I use it as a mask, use it as a primer, and it just hydrates the skin so greatly. Eye cream, I'm using the e.l.f. Skincare Holy Hydration Eye Cream, and also will be using their lip mask. e.l.f. Skincare, I believe, is something very underrated. Okay, no one really talks about that. And I know e.l.f. has had its controversy, but I really love their skincare products. So now I'm wiping off the brows before we get ready to prep the brows. Now, her specific request was that she wanted dark brows, and she wanted them to be defined. She wanted them to be thick looking. She wanted a defined brow. And I was like, all right, let's do this. So I'm using the Colourpop pencil in the shade Ash Brown. It's a very dark brown shade. Kind of comes off as black. So I am filling in the brows with using a natural shape. I started off with creating the tail furs, making that as deep and defined as I could, and then going in towards the inside or the beginning of the brow and just drawing hair-like strokes. And I'm making sure that I really filled in the brow. I'm going to go back over them later on in the video, but I really want to make sure that I got all the hairs covered with the product. So now to lay the brows down and so that they don't move, I'm actually using the Duo Lash Glue. I found that when someone wants a full glam look and they don't really want their natural brow, I find that the lash glue really sticks that down much greater. And with me filling in the brows, because typically I go and start with the eyeshadow first, I just wanted that shape to stay. So now I'm carving out the bottom of the brow using the Too Faced Born This Way concealer. I used the shade Butterscotch and Swan. I just made a mixture of the two, and I am carving out the very bottom of the brow, trying to be as precise as I can and not touch the hairs, but just using the very edge of my concealer brush and dragging that same concealer down to the lid space so that we can prep and prepare the eyes for eyeshadow. And then after I finish carving out the brows, I will be setting the brows with some setting powder, and then we're going to get started with the eyeshadow. So for eyeshadow, I am using the Bolive Beaute Wild Side palette and also the Nude Essential palette. So the shades that I'm using here will be linked down in the description box. But these are caramel brown shades, and I love starting off with a brown shade as my transition color, or just a skin light tone that's going to match the undertone of your skin. Now, she has pretty warm skin, actually, and so I wanted to start off with a warmer brown. And then next I'm using these pink and red shade from the Wild Side palette. She wanted pink. Her wedding dress actually was pink. It was really pretty. It was pretty neat. But pink and gold was what she really wanted. So we decided to go in with this color that matched the theme of her wedding. And I'm deepening up the outer crease and inside of the crease as well with a darker brown shade from that Nude Essential palette. Now we're going to cut the crease, and I'm just taking that same concealer that I used to prep her lid space, and I'm just going along the socket of her eye. Stretching that eyebrow, putting it down to make sure that it isn't too high. Make sure that it's on the natural socket of her eye. And then I'm going to set that concealer with some eyeshadow, of course. And it came from the Nude Essential palette, and it's their beige shades that's in that palette. Blend that out with this little Real Techniques brush that I have here. And we're just stamping that in to make sure that the shadow is set. Now, I am going to go back over with the same shadows that I was using before. So that pink shade, we're going in the outer corner. And then we're going to deepen it up with the brown shade as well. And we're just creating like an ombre effect, making sure that each color transitions well into the other. And I'm smoking out the crease as well because I really wanted that defined. It looks really pretty and just makes the eye look a little bit more snatched. Now we are prepping the lid space for some glitter. So before I put any chunky glitter, I like to put on like a fine glitter first. So this is the e.l.f. Fine glitter in the shade It's Glit. And now I am using some lash glue, the Duo Lash Glue, to put the chunky glitter on. Now she, like I said, glitz and glam. She wanted the whole 9 yards. So this chunky glitter I have came from Ariwinkle. Ariel Black, that is here on YouTube. She has her own brand, so I bought these glitters from her. And I'm using pink and gold because that was the theme and the color scheme of her wedding, and she wanted a lot of glitter, like over the entire lid space. But I did add my little touch, of course, by after putting that glitter, going back in and smoking out that crease and making it just look a tad bit more defined, but also blended and not so obvious that there's chunky glitter on that. So now I am doing the lashes. We're just going to add some mascara first. I put a little lash glue along the lash line, and then I also put lash glue on the lash line of the false lash. This just helps ensure that the lash is not going to pop off. Okay, it sticks very well. When you are putting the lash on, just make sure you're lining it with the lash line. You can use tweezers. I'm not good with using tweezers. I feel more comfortable with using my fingers, so that's why I do that. Also, too, I'm doing my client's edges because she's like, I need to do something with my edges. So I said, girl, let me do your edges. So I helped her do her edges. Sometimes you got to help your brides. It's a stressful day, emotional day, and they just need somewhere there to support them. So now for foundation, we are using e.l.f. Soft Glam Satin Foundation in the shade 22 Light and L'Oreal True Match Foundation in the shade Warm 5.5, W5.5 actually. And I like to paint the foundation on the face first, and then I go back in and blend it out. Now her face is already prepped with that Embryolisse cream, and I even mixed some of that Embryolisse cream into the foundation just to make sure that it had a smoothing base. It was creamy and that it really blended well into the skin. I used the foundation to carve out the top of her brows. I like using foundation because it just helps with creating a more unison look instead of using concealer on top of it. And I like keeping the same formula too, if that makes sense. So I'm blending this out using this Duo brush from e.l.f. I will also link this brush down. This is a really, really cool brush. I love a double-sided brush. We got the big side for the foundation and the little one that you could use to get into those tiny little areas around the nose, around the mouth. And I even used it to put on the concealer. For concealer, I'm using Swan from Too Faced and a little bit of Butterscotch also from Too Faced, the concealers. And I like these concealers because they're full coverage, and she did have a little bit of darkness under the eyes, and I chose not to color correct because I knew that those concealers were going to add enough coverage. For bronzer and blush, I'm using the Made by Mitchell Curve Case in the shade Light. And again, all shades I'll be using will be down in the description box because I don't have them with me right now. But we're bronzing up the skin first. Just going around the perimeter of her forehead, along her cheeks. We're going to do a little bit on the jawline and the chin. And we're also going to put some on that nose as well. And we bronze up the perimeter because when the sun hits your face, that is where the shadow falls off from it. So I like putting bronzer in that area. Also using blush from the same palette. It is like a baby pink shade, and I thought this would look so pretty with the eyeshadow, and I tried to match the eyeshadow, the blush, and the lips together. I like to go back over my client's face with the foundation brush to make sure everything is blended well and is seamless. And now we are setting the face with some powder. So the powder that I'm using is from About Face. It is their Curtain Call powder in the shade Bow. I love this powder. It's so finely milled together. It's so smoothing. It is talc free, so we don't have that in there. I know people like talc, especially those with oily skin, but I don't know. As someone with dry skin, I just find talc free powders to be very smoothing. Bronzing and blushing the face with Juvia's Place. I have the bronzer in tan, and the blush in volume number 4. So that baby pink shade. And we're just putting it along the cheeks. I put some on the nose. It looks cute. Set in her face with that Set and Prep mist from Morphe, and going back over with the brows because I did feel like they kind of disappeared a little bit. I forget to cover the eyes sometimes whenever I'm spraying, and sometimes that spray settles into the makeup, but I don't want it to set the eyes and the brows. I want it to set the foundation. So we just went back over with that. Lining the lips, I am using the Morphe color pencil in the shade Bite Me, and I am also going to use the NYX Soft Matte Cream lipstick, and I am going to use that as the liquid lipstick. Now, she loved the lip. She was like, oh, this was perfect. I thought I could have went lighter, but that's the thing about having your client there. You know, it's about what they want and what they like, and she loved the lip. I was like, okay. let's stick with that lip then. So we stick with that lip, and we put a lip gloss on top. I gave her some mascara on the bottom of her lash, put in some inner corner highlight. I really don't know what palette this is. That's why I haven't listed it, because I don't know what I picked up. Setting her face again with that Morphe mist, and then I am going to go back over with that powder puff just to make sure that is all set into the skin before we lock the whole look in and put it in place with the infallible setting mist. And that's it. This is how the look came out. This is her and her hubby, and the look was so beautiful.